Okay, so best practice. I guess we split it into three parts. So we do a lot of usability work with third parties using customers to test kind of wireframes and concepts. So prior to actually going into designing within the code base. So I guess that would be the first stage, the usability step. From there would generally A/B test or multivariant test any new functionality using a conversion rate optimization third party that we use called AWA. And then from there, presuming it was, well, if unsuccessful, obviously we'd look to the insight as to what needed changing. If successful, it'd be pushed out to live. Obviously, continue to see if we can improve it, and then we'd monitor that through traditional session replay tools, Google Analytics, the usual off-the-shelf packages that are part of our technology stack. In terms of live chat, I think an always-on approach is something that I personally favour. So if you do have a contact us page, or if you do have real estate on your website, wherever that may be, where you can showcase live chat, then I think it's almost got to the point now where it's a hygiene factor, in that it's a customer expectation that they should be able to do that. Therefore, it should just be done. And further to that, I think identifying struggle points. Obviously, in an ideal world, you will overcome those struggle points through improved customer experience, through development. But if there's a specific struggle point where you think the ability for a customer to speak to an agent, then obviously displaying live chat maybe more prominently in those positions can only be of benefit. So yeah, I'd suggest two learnings from the number of years that we've had it would be it should be present in the same way that an email address or historically a telephone number has been, and then further to that, if you can get it front and center where a customer may be struggling, then you could see conversion improvements as a result of that. It's okay. I think in e-commerce more generally, it's obviously going to be very dependent on the business model and what the business is looking for. But primarily, a favoured KPI rather than AOV or conversion rate specifically would be a revenue per session metric. So actually looking at the average revenue per session that you're getting from your visitors from your sessions, rather than a singular conversion or AOV benefit, because it's very easy to increase AOV, but that could potentially be to the detriment of conversion. And equally, you could easily increase conversion, but that might be to the detriment of AOV. To improve revenue per session, as everyone that's watching this will know, there's no silver bullet. I'd always reckon A/B testing, conversion rate optimization. I'd recommend looking at analytics, but really getting the insight from the analytics rather than looking at specifically the data. I think those would be my key, I guess, takeaways. Yeah, so revenue per session as a key metric, and utilizing conversion rate optimization analytics, and from conversion rate optimization and analytics, obviously either making merchandising changes or design changes or dev changes as a result of that, and then looping back around to measure those things to ensure that you've done the correct thing. Um, well, I presume that would be in reference to, for example, if if a specific stem type was out of stock. It's not something that we're faced with currently, because our current product proposition, we ask the florists to make the best possible bouquet with the freshest stems that they have available to them, rather than being quite prescriptive about what stems that they need to include. But where historically we or other retailers have been quite prescriptive about what stems they need to include, I think it's about managing that customer journey. Fresh flowers are different to other perhaps commodities, and therefore it is possible that certain stems will be unavailable at certain times, and therefore substitute stems that are of as equal value and of equal kind of customer satisfaction can be replaced. It's just important to manage customers' expectation in that respect, whether that be on the product page talking about the possibility, or worst case scenario, once the order has been placed, if the issue arises at that point, being absolutely upfront with your customers and contacting them via telephone or via email to advise that unfortunately in this instance we've had to do something differently, but this is the reason why. And generally we get really good feedback from customers when we do that, because we've been upfront and we've been transparent about what's happened. Um, I think there's absolutely advantages to both. I think the advantage to our model, and I guess you could use the situation that we've had over the last few months as a prime example, in that we don't have any single point of failure. So we work with a thousand florists, circa 1,000 florists. They are our supply chain, and therefore we don't have a single point of failure. So that certainly works to our benefit. We obviously benefit from a strong high street business. So having your brand on the high street throughout the country can only be beneficial for brand recognition, for brand traffic, etc. And that's not something that obviously can be achieved through a pure play. Like I say, not to say that pure plays have advantages themselves, but what I'm really keen to do, and what Interflora are really keen to do, is absolutely double down on what our USPs are and what our differentiation is, and that is about the local florist network delivering fantastic products to our recipients. Um, I guess a prime example would be the instance that you just the question identified, where if for whatever reason there is any issues with an order, what we want to do is be speaking to that customer as quickly as possible to manage their expectations, to continue to make sure we're doing the best we can for that customer. If a florist contacting us by live chat allows us to do that, then that's much more advantageous than an email coming through from a florist, which maybe means that a customer isn't updated for a period of time. If we can get back to that customer much more quickly, then that can only benefit ourselves in terms of improved customer satisfaction rates. Yeah. Um, I'll be perfectly honest, I haven't given it much thought how we could combine it with chats, if I'm perfectly honest. But in terms of being doomed for failure, I don't think so. I think the amount of money that companies much bigger than ourselves and yourselves, such as Amazon and Google, if they're putting kind of mega money into it, then I can't imagine that it's doomed for failure. I think it offers another way in which customers can interact with e-commerce, place orders via e-commerce. In instances, for example, if you were in the kitchen doing something else, and you can potentially inquire about something, potentially purchase something, whether that be an ingredient or something that you've forgotten to do earlier in the day. If you're in the car and it's safe to do so, then again, you could potentially be placing an order for something that you've not had opportunity to do during the day and kind of utilizing that dead time. So I don't have any magic magic insight as to how quickly it's going to grow, but I think it's inevitable that it will grow. And hopefully by us being at the forefront of it, as we have been, being the first retailer to offer an end-to-end e-commerce, voice commerce experience, hopefully we'll be able to benefit from that, and our customers will be able to benefit from that when it does get bigger, which I'm sure it will. It's not a franchise model. So all our florists are independently run, successful florists who would like to work with us because we obviously we've got fantastic brand recognition. We've been around for nearly 100 years. Customers come to us, customers place an order through us, and then we pass that order on to the florist, and the florist executes that order. So the florist gets a profitable order, helping them to continue to be successful, and the customer benefits from the knowledge that they've worked with a brand that's been around for nearly 100 years, and then the recipient benefits from receiving a fantastic product. So it's certainly a tried and tested approach, but yeah, it's something that we believe differentiates ourselves from a lot of other e-commerce retailers, and absolutely benefits the florists and allows them to continue to have a high street presence, because not only are they thriving local businesses, they're benefiting from the e-commerce orders that are coming via our web channels. Um, hugely important. We've had a mobile. Well, we used to have a specific mobile site up until a number of years ago. So very early, we recognised the growing take up of mobile devices, and the fact that they were going to be increasingly used for commerce. We also had an app as well, so we had a standalone app. What we're now offering is an adaptive experience. So it's the same code base as our desktop and tablet experience, but it's adaptive for a mobile device. So it offers customers an excellent experience that allows them to quickly and easily purchase on the go. And as with lots of other e-commerce retailers, we've seen that just obviously increase, and the majority of our traffic, as per the vast majority of other retailers, now comes via mobile devices, whether that be phones or tablets. To see a channel as a success, I'd probably need to clarify what they're talking about specifically regarding the channel, but generally we'd look at our marketing sources and see how they're performing, and check that they're performing to an optimal rate. We'd obviously we'd track sessions. We'd look at bounce rate. But none of these things can be kind of looked at in isolation. For example, a high bounce rate on a specific page, for example, an order tracking page, could actually be a positive thing, because the customers come into the site, tracking their order, seeing that it's been delivered successfully, and then leaving the site. So in that instance, a high bounce rate is a positive. So as I mentioned very early on in today's discussion, I don't think you can look at any of the data in isolation. It's more about the insight, and we've got really strong insight from our web analyst and throughout the business. But generally, we'd look at sessions, we'd look at bounce rate, we'd look at conversion, We'd look at the funnel, so we'd see where customers are coming into the site and where they're dropping off, and obviously making changes or testing changes based on those drop-off points. And then we'd be looking at average order values. But again, as I mentioned before, you can't just presume that a high average order value is necessarily a good thing, because a high average order value might be to the detriment of conversion and vice versa. So we look at them holistically, and then we make decisions collectively based on the insight that we have. No, it's been a pleasure. Enjoyable talking to you. Hopefully next year we can be in Paris rather than remotely. That would be fantastic. And yeah, just been a pleasure working for iAdvice for a number of years, and we look forward to continuing the relationship.